Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Helping the Brave, and let's bring in our guest today. You need to unmute yourself there, Savannah Rose Stokes. How you doing today?
Hi, it's so nice to be with you.
You say that now. You haven't had the whole show. We'll get there. All right. So the only question I ever ask that's the same on each show is what service and why?
Yeah, so I joined the Marine Corps. I was an officer in the Marine Corps because my father was in the Marine Corps and my older brother, and I knew when I was about 4 years old that I watched those women walk across the field at my brother's graduation from his boot camp, and I was like, "That's it. I got to do that."
But you were an officer, and did you go to the Naval Academy?
I did, yes. Yeah. So after deciding and seeing that and being like, oh yeah, like I clearly need to be a part of that organization, I um I then discovered when I was around 12 years old that there was such a thing as the Naval Academy. And you and I talked earlier about like, oh, realizing that the Marine Corps is in the Department of the Navy. Who knew? And that the only service academy that serves the Marine Corps was the Naval Academy. And so I went there as a result of lots and lots and lots of very careful planning.
I was gonna say, because it's not for everybody.
No.
And 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 please, this is not an I have tons of daughters and I love my wife, but women that's not the first thing you think of them wanting to be as a Marine and an officer as a Marine, as a female and person. And I met many. It's not, and you come across very nice. So, I mean, I could just imagine, there are some people who come across differently and you could say, okay, I could see that, but and we'll
Yeah,
get
I,
the whole
I
story.
I don't fit your standard kind of image of what a Marine Corps officer. I've got half my head shaved and a tattoo on my head. I, you know,
Well, you had probably your head shaved while you're in, right?
I did not. No, that would not have been within regulations, as we
So they
say.
had to have hair, you couldn't have it trimmed up short?
No, you actually, what was interesting is people think like female Marine, oh, maybe she has like a GI Jane look,
Right.
right? Where you could like shave it. It was actually out of regulation for women to shave their head. I think with certain limitations around ethnicity and things like that. But for like a white woman to shave her head, you couldn't do it. I couldn't have a buzz cut. So, which is so fascinating to
That's
me.
so racist, I tell you.
But it was a weird double standard. That
Yeah.
is for sure. Yeah.
Alright, so at the Naval Academy, what'd you study?
I studied Chinese because that was one of the first years that they offered foreign language, and I had graduated from high school in China, and had
Okay,
gone to
we need to
school
back
there.
up. So
Yeah.
you did say your family was in the Marine Corps. You come from a military family.
My father was in the Marine Corps, but well before I was born. He
Okay.
was in during Vietnam. He did not deploy, but he was an attorney in the Marine Corps. And so his experience, very different from mine, but also wildly impactful in his life. And so it felt to him like one of the most transformative experiences. And so he highly encouraged it for all of us, all of his children. And two of his, let's say, five children ended up going into the Marine Corps. But also during that journey of growing up, and much in through my father's recommendation, he was like, by the way, China's going to take over the world one day, which we're kind of seeing. And he's like, it would be good if you learned this language. And I happen to be very good at languages. And so I decided, not only I did an immersion program in high school, but then after that, I realized the only way to really learn a language like that is to live there. So I applied for a school, and I ended up doing my senior year in Beijing, China.
Wow.
Mhm.
Before it was taken over.
Yes, it was. It was still at the same time with Hu Jintao, which at the time was a really beautiful government. Actually, all things considered, considering a lot of their other governmental systems, and Hu Jintao was more of a democratic kind of open-minded leader. And then after I left, Xi Jinping came into power, and that has changed a lot of things.
Because it was a British colony forever, wasn't it?
Hong Kong was,
Hong Kong,
yes.
that's right.
So, which I did. I actually visited Hong Kong, and I was very young. I was about, I think, 6 or 7 years old when it went back to the British. It was the year, or went back to the Chinese government. I visited the year before that. So I got to see kind of the differences. And I also watched China shift from the time I went there in high school, which was 2006 and 7. And then I went back in high school, 2010 to 11, which was after the Olympics. And there was a massive change in the culture through that as well. So I've witnessed some pretty interesting kind of global changes happen with the East.
Yeah, because I went from being almost open to being more all communist again.
Yes.
And
Yes.
unfortunately, the people in the United States who think that that's a good thing have no idea because they never lived it. Or socialism, have no idea what that means. It's just stupidity. But let's just move on before I really get upset.
Well,
It's like
I
people
might
like,
just
wake
comment.
up, people, wake up. You
I
have no
might say that it's because the type of, quote, socialism and or communism that's practiced there is really not in its truest form. It's not what Marx wrote about. It's fascism, sort of in disguise. So
Well, it's just what people don't realize. It's the same thing with Russia. Whenever any of these things that was there, it's never exactly how it was supposed to be perfectly the way that it should work. It's
yeah.
skewed for the certain amount of people be in control and have the money, and then tell everybody else what to do. Kind of the way we were going there until we just recently had a nice change, and that's the only political thing I will say. Now, if you want to listen to me on that stuff, go get on my radio show. We can talk.
That'll be the other show. Okay. Love it.
But it's just so that's very unique that you went there and immersed yourself with it. And so you graduated. And
Yes.
did the military use that your Chinese at all, or did they like shove you?
Don't we wish? Don't we wish that the military?
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe now that the military has AI, maybe they'll be able to sort of match people with their skill set. But I mean, you may have seen this, right? You're sort of a cog in the machine. You're a number. The idea of all these movies and shows where people get like hand picked or hand selected to be this particular person or this like secret agent is unlikely. That's not to say it's impossible. I have met people who have experienced that, but I did want to do more like human intelligence, things like that, and to use my Chinese skills. But that never came to be. So I just took that as it happened the way it was supposed to.
Well, people who usually get to go exactly where they want, there's somebody tapping them on the shoulder, somebody overseeing what they're doing, somebody they know, somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody to help them along that way.
Yes.
So what was your first, when you graduated, where did you go?
So when I graduated from the Naval Academy and then I got trained out in California, I actually left training early because my unit was deploying to Afghanistan. So I went out to Helmand Province and
Before you
was
got there, where in California were you getting trained?
Trained at 29 Palms, the beautiful 29 Palms.
Yeah, most people who don't know, it's 29 stumps. Come on.
But
I've been there.
You've been there.
Yeah, but it's in people 29 palms. No, it's 29 stumps. I don't care.
It's 29 stumps. It is now because it's next to Joshua Tree, and Joshua Tree is so cool, right? It's actually a very cool place to be. But when I was there, Joshua Tree was still had not been fully discovered yet. It still wasn't like the vibrant kind of hippie paradise that it is now. So I was there for about 3 months and then went out to a very similar environment, honestly. Like going from 29 Palms to the Afghanistan desert was not that big of a difference. And that's why they train you out there. Say again?
Same temperature? No.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Was it
Just
100?
about.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say 29 Palms always felt hotter, but I think that's because I was in 29 Palms during like spring and summer months. And then in Afghanistan, I often was there during like colder months, like during winter. I was there twice.
Like when it's only 90?
Yeah, exactly. When it snowed one year. Can you believe that? It snowed.
In Afghanistan or in?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
In Afghanistan. Yeah, in the desert, in the middle of the desert. It was very weird. but yeah, I went out there and I was part of Operation Enduring Freedom, kind of twice in a row. Went from 2012 to 2013, and then end of 2013 to 2014.
And then what happened after that? You came back to the States. Where did you go? What happened?
Yeah, and during those deployments, I just went through a total kind of reckoning of myself because I had joined the military with all of these hopes and dreams and ideas that I'd been told about being a leader and being a warrior and being part of something bigger and being part of something that was going to help people. And what I experienced in war was somewhat different from that. I experienced just this sort of cognitive dissonance of like, are we really the good guys here? And the Afghanistan war in particular is such a strange one, or was such a strange experience, because it really wasn't super clear who the quote good guys was. The idea of good and evil really didn't make a lot of sense there. And I had an experience where I was watching some of the footage from one of our UAVs drop a bomb on a guy who had implanted an IED, improvised explosive device. Most of your listeners probably know.
Thank you for
But
explaining that. I always tell people, don't just drop back in.
don't just drop the acronyms, right? So one of our drones was watching this guy after he had implanted this. And of course, he becomes the enemy at that point, right? He is the guy we're going after. And during that sort of chase and that process, I just thought to myself, like, who is this guy? He's someone's brother, someone's father. And the chances are he was probably paid or threatened by the Taliban or Al Qaeda or one of these terrorist groups to do this. And the likelihood is he's not like the guy we're looking for, but we're going to kill him because he's now a threat. And that whole journey, and what ended up happening was we dropped a Hellfire missile and he got away. We actually watched his heat signature run off and get out and not perish in that. And I got myself thinking about this and started questioning sort of the nature of war and peace, and are we really doing good out here? So that created a whole disillusionment of my belief system and me to start to rebuild who I thought I might be. And that led me to the corporate world, where I started working at Facebook.
Oh, are you at Facebook?
Not anymore.
Okay, I was gonna say, wow. But let's back up a little bit,
Yeah.
because I interviewed a gentleman a couple of weeks ago. He just wrote a book. His dad was in Vietnam, and his same situation, Afghanistan, and he looked at the wars and the similarities to the wars and how they were and everything about it. And he's come up with the same thing, that there's things that just don't make sense. And what we were doing, and I was talking to him about it. There's on was it not iTunes, but on Apple TV, there's a Vietnam series, and have you seen that series?
No, I haven't. Tell me
It's
what is
what's
that?
unique about it is they have footage of the Viet Cong, and they interview them, and they have footage from us, from the news watching stuff. And the Viet Cong, like, we have no idea why they're in our country and why they're invading us, and that's so they're not told what has happened to cause this happening, and that's the same
Interesting.
thing that with Afghanistan and why. So if you
Like,
look.
why are these people here?
Exactly. They
Yeah.
thought we invaded, and that's what we were doing, trying to invade their country and take it over. And it also
Of
has
course, that would make sense.
yeah. So because they're just told to go do stuff,
Right.
and then they live together underground and they build the tunnels, and then it talks about our tunnel rats and how they going in and what they did. But
Wow.
but when you listen to them, they're like, yeah, we slept together, we did this together, we were tight knit, kind of like we are with our people that work together with all the time there. And you were just like going, wow, they had no idea why we were there. And most of us had no idea why we were there.
Yeah, exactly, right? And both sides, like, when you get down to the people of it, right? You have the highest levels, the highest echelons of leadership, of government, that are going back and forth, but then you have the people who are actually carrying it all out. And we're like, why are we here? Why are you here? What are you doing? And I think we're seeing some of this in, I've watched some of the social media footage of the, like, Russian Ukrainian crisis, and some of the Russians that end up, like, surrendering in Ukraine because they're like, I don't actually know why I'm here to attack you. Like, I don't get it. And there's some really sweet footage of some, Russians being taken in by Ukrainian families when they are defecting and things like that. But I think there is this new cognitive dissonance that's happening around all wars of like, who is the good guy? Who is the bad guy? Is this actually helping? And what I learned through the process for myself was that war doesn't work in the ways that we think it will. And at least it may have at one point in our society, but now the way that we're operating in war really isn't as effective as it may have once been. And we're now evolving to a place where we can potentially have different means of peace and diplomacy and working together as a society. So I became more of a warrior for peace on the other side of that, and slowly but surely have drifted even into more of like priestess work of like more spiritual devotion, and very committed to peace in how we, an actual active peace, not just peace as like, I'm going to surrender and like, I'll let you beat me to death, but more of a, the ways that like Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi had nonviolent action, which is what I deeply believe in.
Well, I think if we get more veterans into political offices, we'll go to war less.
Yeah.
It's the certain, if you look, and this is going to get political, but the people with that starts with the D, they really want to go to war. I mean, don't get me wrong, some Republicans do too, but I mean, they don't have family who were in the military. Less people. There has to be. It's not like it's a World War I or World War II where we know exactly who the bad guy is. This stuff has been different. There are certain things and this is like Vietnam, where you didn't know who the enemy was because everybody looked the same.
Yeah.
And the show I told you about, they would this young kid who would shoe shine I can't even think today. Can't speak either.
Words are hard today. I understand.
No, it's just the GI's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
He was sent there to find out where everybody was, and he would go back and report. And he's older now, and he talks about that's what he would do. They would send him out, and they would find out where everybody was at, and come back and report on it. And if you don't know who the enemy is, how are you supposed to do this right? And I think a lot of people don't understand why we're fighting for certain things, and we need to have a more understanding of that if we go to war. What the real reason we're going to war is? It just to make money? Is it just to do this? Because sometimes it seems that's what it is, and we're all military, but we understand, hey, what are we really doing here? Why does this not sound right? We're here to help and protect the world, but we have to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons.
Very much. I think that the intention behind anything is super important, and it's what caused me to kind of go into this internal process of disillusionment and to break down all of my belief systems, and for me, a lot of it was around religion and spirituality, and do I even believe in Methodism or Christianity anymore? Is there a God? That was a big question for me. I went through that period of nihilism of like, there's no way that there could be a God that allows something like this to happen. And that led me to a deep questioning process that I went into when I was in the corporate world on the way out of the military.
They must have really loved you at Facebook.
They did, actually.
That was a sarcasm.
Oh, good. I'm like,
No, I'm just saying
I'm like,
because I could just see, oh, she's got it.
yeah,
And then you're like, oh,
they
well, I
did.
decided that it's not really what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, it was. I ran the veteran organization at Facebook, and I helped to grow that from like 200 people to about 2,000 people across the world. And we had
Wow.
all these little like networks of veterans. And because I felt when I got there that I wasn't fully honored for what I had done in the military. And also, there was not a lot of translation at the time of like, oh, you're a captain in the Marine Corps. This means you should be at this level in the corporate world. They did not understand that. And I even came in with the recommendation of the COO, Sheryl Sandberg, but it still didn't really translate to, who is this person that's here? And I wanted other veterans to not experience that. I wanted them to experience like deep respect once they came. So we improved the culture for veterans and also helped with some like language translation things for MOSs and for career paths. And I really I enjoyed my time. I was there for 3 years and ultimately discovered that it felt similarly like a very big organization. And I realized I wanted to be in something smaller where I could make more of an impact. But I really, I actually had a great time at Facebook and I met some really incredible people.
Now, do you still have the groups that you created, the veteran groups? Are you still connected to those?
They're still there. I mean, that's all within Facebook. It was all within the veteran employee community,
Gotcha.
and that was during the big kind of what we call like the expansion of Facebook around 2016 was when I got there, and then I left in 2019. So there was this huge ballooning of the workforce during that period of time, and of course we know that it's gotten a little smaller over the past couple of years. But all of that is still there, and there's a few things that I built, like the whole onboarding process for Facebook proper, which I'm like, yeah. So there are some things that live on in the legacy, and it feels really good that they allowed me to have the freedom to do that.
Yeah, because I don't know if you see there, I have the Operation Firewalk, which is the event for veterans. Have you looked into it at all? Have you heard about it?
No, tell me more about this.
So a year ago, I was a president of my Rotary, and I wanted to give back my year to veterans. So I just thought we needed to do more in our community. I'm in Modesto, California.
Awesome.
So I was like, I got to do more for vets. We're dying at 22 a day. That was what I thought at first. By the time I was done with my year, I realized it was 50 a day vets are committing suicide. First responders are about at the same right there. So I interviewed a guy named Dave Albin on this show. So it'd be almost 2 years ago. And he worked for Tony Robbins for 20 years as his fire captain doing the firewalks. And he was interviewed by another lady, and she's like, do you ever do? So he has his own company now, but he was interviewed by somebody else. And she's like, have you ever done a firewalk just for veterans? And he's like, no. Well, he came on my show. I said, I'm in. And 6 months later, we had our first firewalk for veterans. And basically, it was a 2-day event. You came. We had Dave Sanderson, who was the motivational speaker. He was the last person off the plane on the Hudson, the one that went down the Hudson.
Yes.
Everybody off the plane, and he
Yep.
spoke. Great guy, great thing. And then in a night, we had the actual walk. And my goal was to save one veteran life, and we did way more than that. That was just it. I was like, what's a life worth? I don't care how much I spend through the Rotary, it's worth that. And so we did that. It was a 2-night event. This year we're doing only 1 day because we found that 2-night events just too much.
Yeah.
And then when we get bigger, because we'll have probably about 225 to 250 people show up. Don't tell the people that we're renting the place from, because a lot of them won't be standing around. But anyway, so this year we have a 35-year veteran who created the veteran centers for UOP and Delta College talking. And then we also have Bobby Seen, who is a fire chief, whatever, from 9/11. He had 2 towers fall on him. The next day he was there digging people out, and he's going to be talking. So I wanted somebody for first responders and somebody for vets. And in the night, we're going to walk across Coles again. And that's May 3rd, 2025. Come on out.
Awesome. And that is in Modesto?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's going
Okay.
to be the Woodstock of the.
This is going to be the Woodstock of. I love this. This is cool.
So
wow. What a
next
beautiful
year,
thing.
because I have a CEO of Ion Networks wanting to get involved. I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and I don't know how that's going to work. So I'm thinking next year, and a lot more people are getting involved for next year, and it's going to get even bigger. And so we'll still be here, but the question is, where can we have at that point? It's going to be big enough for it.
Well, I'm putting a little mental note on this because we also love doing events and love partnering in events with Metamorphosis. So let's stay in touch on this.
Well, I already thought about it because we had American Weed there last year.
Oh, fabulous. Okay.
And they do a lot of weed for special, just for veterans, that a certain blend that supposedly helps. I don't know. I'm not a big weed taker. I don't like the smell. I can't stand it. So it's just not my thing. But
It's not my choice of medicine, but I deeply honor what it does for a lot of people, and it's very, very powerful for
Before
many.
you came on, I was working on my store, the Printful, so we could print on demand stuff for this thing.
Cool.
Because I've been doing this podcast for a while. I do a couple other podcasts plus radio, but I've come up with ideas for t-shirts. And one of my t-shirts was, I don't care how you get your help, just get your help. And it had a leaf for marijuana. It had a mushroom. I mean, it just had everything. I was like, it was
That's so
created
good.
at GPT, this is what I want. I've come up with so many ideas that
Yes.
now I got to get them out to be so people can have them. Cause it's like, I don't care how you get your help as long as you get your help.
Just get it
Because
somewhere.
the problem we have about what you talked about, the military complex system, is like,
Mhm.
as you hear people say, is VA. VA set up to kill vets. That's what it's there.
Mm.
It's to get rid of vets. It's
Mm.
not there to help you. I don't know if you went to get your benefits at all, but it is not easy to do. I went
Yeah.
back years after when I first got out, they're like 10%. They denied everything. I went back. They didn't do anything. It was for 20 years. It was horrible. You couldn't get anything. In the last 8 years or so, it's been much better. The last 4 hasn't been that great,
Yep.
but prior it hopefully that will change. I don't know if it is, but I'm watching everything and how going through the process for what I'm doing. And I keep telling everybody, and I finally saw my medical records because I had to get it for my benefit. And it was like, he was very irritated. He understands why vets commit suicide waiting to get into these systems.
Mm.
Because I
Mhm.
say it to
Mhm.
everybody. I'm like, this is ridiculous. You guys canceled my appointment this many times, and it took 4 months to get in to see you about
Oh,
PTSD. I can see why vets commit suicide because they're just
yeah.
done at that point.
Yep. And I think, what's interesting is, Ed, is my experience with the VA has been very different, but that's because of the locations. Like each VA, right? Each VA health center has its own energy and its own like operation. And I just have happened in like the deepest blessings. I've been near the ones that are some of the top in the country. So I haven't really experienced the like shitty part of the VA because I just haven't ever been near those. But I know that is a real thing, and that absolutely needs. Hopefully, if there are any administrations that can help to make things more efficient, maybe
Well,
this one will do
Well, my
it.
big thing is I always thought you should shut down the VA, give everybody medical like Medicare, Medi-Cal. Here's your card, go anywhere. We pay at 120%. Go to any place, get yours. You sign it online, you got your stuff. I don't care if you're and then one of the problems is I was lucky enough to miss combat by 2 days. And so you were like, yeah, exactly. And I tell everybody, I don't wish anybody to have to go to combat, anybody to go to the sandbox, anybody
Yeah.
at all, because it not that what I saw and what I did as an EMT, because I pulled duty as an EMT, plus I saw some really horrific things in my taking care of wound care and other stuff. It's a long story for another time. But I didn't think I had PTSD because I didn't go to combat. And it was from I wanted to be in the
Oh
medical
yes.
field my whole life. I wanted to stay in the medical field forever. But once I got there and got on the other side after 5 years, I'm like, I'm out of here. I didn't realize it was from what I saw. I just thought it was some other reason. I look back and I understand it now. You don't know until you start. I never really looked back. I was a workaholic and exerciseaholic. Now I
Mhm.
know why. That's how I dealt with it instead of dealing with it. If you
Yep.
understand what I mean.
And I so appreciate that you speak to these other types of addictive tendencies, right? These coping mechanisms
Yeah.
that we all use, and they're normalized, right? So workaholic, workoutaholic, right? Whatever your like, it can be medicine, but then we take it to an extent where it becomes obsessive. And for me, I definitely went the route of like codependency with my work. I went like full into workaholism, and Facebook Meta is a perfect environment for that because
Right.
there tends to be like around the clock kind of working, and then and chaotic environments, right? And then I also, like, while in the Marine Corps, I definitely drank way too much for my body size, my who I am. Like, I just should not be drinking really at all, and I don't anymore. But there were all sorts of coping mechanisms that I developed that I would not have associated with PTSD. But then as time has gone on, I realized, oh yeah, I absolutely had PTSD, potentially CPTSD. not only as a result of going to combat, and I didn't shoot anybody in combat. I was on a base, but I was on a base when we were attacked. I was on a base when there were multiple, mortar rounds that would wake us up in the middle of the night and you'd have to go hide in a bunker. I was on a base where there was plenty of sexual assault, and I was a victim advocate for survivors of sexual assault. So there was all this energy around me. And although I may not have had like a physical moment where I had to be in like life or death for my body was consistently in fight or flight for years. And I think that is, you speak about the 50 veterans a day. This, first of all, it breaks my heart. I haven't heard that number, and that actually makes a lot of sense. And based on what I've seen, and also based in my own, like the people in my class who have died from the Naval Academy, people who have died from my organizations and my units in the Marine Corps. Like I've just watched people, die. And a lot of times there's a lot of mystery around like how they died, because most of the time it's suicide and they just don't share it.
Right. They don't put a
And
note. If
so
there's no note, they don't count them.
they don't say, yeah, if it's like there is no, cause of death listed, then the chances are it was self-inflicted. And that level of like constant just reminder of the pain, finally for me led me into, like you said, I don't care what medicine it is, like find it, right? Find whatever it is. For me, it started out with psychedelics, specifically LSD, MDMA, more recreationally, because I was in the Bay Area, and in that environment, people are much more open about it. The stigma isn't there in that region. And so I remember experiencing my first LSD journey, and I was looking at a mountain across from me with some trees, and everything started to breathe with me. And I experienced this moment of interconnection, and this moment of like everything was connected, everything was loving me, I was loving it. We were all in sync. And I remembered that feeling from growing up on the farm I grew up on in Georgia as a young girl. And I was like, oh, this is the same feeling. I had just forgotten this. I'd forgotten that I am not actually separate from everything. I am a part of everything. And it was actually in that very first journey, which I had a lot of stigmas about LSD. I thought it was gonna, harm me. I thought I was gonna jump out of a window, all the propaganda. Like I had all the fears. When I finally did do it, LSD said to me, like in the journey, it was like, Susannah, it's not just about playtime. It's actually about healing. This is a medicine, and a lot of the other plants are medicine, and we can work with these in a sort of working, like an emotional clearing and working process. It doesn't have to be just play. That's not to say you can't also play in those environments. It can be recreational, but there's something much deeper here and much more. And that's what led me into then getting trained to facilitate and ultimately facilitating. And it was quite the journey of discovering myself to become a facilitator, and then to found Metamorphosis Ventures. Yeah.
Ayahuasca.
I have sat with ayahuasca. Yeah. And
It's funny. I've never heard that before. I've sat with ayahuasca.
yes. So
Just so you know, and the reason I bring that up is I know people who are real, they've done it and it's helped them drastically. There's a podcaster who I had him on my show, and he lost 100 pounds, started a podcast, created a community, all within like 4 months after, 5 months after doing it. It just changed his life drastically. And he went, I think he was 60 months over there, and which is unheard of. The
Yeah,
most he was deployed was, because usually
that's a long time.
yeah, because he was reservist, and a lot of reservists got stuck over there longer than anybody else.
Oof,
Yeah,
holy
multiple
moly.
tours. But yeah, so and then I know a lot of people who it just, it's illegal in California, but there still
Mhm,
is, people do it.
mhm.
And I know some people have some property, they want to buy it to create a little community up there and
Yeah.
to do that kind of stuff. And that's like, I don't really care how you get help as long as you get help somewhere. Because back to this is all I'm going to say about the VA. Medically, great. The PTSD part of it is where the
Mhm.
problem is.
Mm.
It's to get in and get seen. It's like they wanna make sure you have it. It's like, if I
Right.
say I have it, I have it. It's not like you can, it's you it and that's what the thing is. You gotta go talk to a nurse first, then you gotta go to a social worker, and
Yep.
then they send you behavior health. Then you send you over to the inside people to talk. Well, if they're not available, then you get community care. Well,
Mm.
they sent me to community care. These people reached out trying to get me, their name of their company was mendingfeelings.com. I'm like, that is
Mending
just a
feelings.
fucking insult, excuse my language. Just to any vet, mending
Mending
feelings.
feelings.
And then
Yeah.
if you went to their website,
Yeah.
social warriors.
Mm.
First of all, I'm an old white guy. That probably wouldn't be the right place to send me.
Mm. Mm.
I'm in California. There's, people get grants and stupid stuff because these governments, they have these own agendas and everything else and throw money out. Same issue why we go to war. And I was like, come on, you guys need to look at this stuff. They're supposed to when they send you to community care, talk to you, say, okay, I
Yeah.
got these two choices. Which one do you want? They don't do that. They just send you. And that's when I say medically, most people are taken very good care of, which is really good. It's the mental part that we really need help with. And that's where the problem is.
Yes. And I'd say that really the only way to get out of that mental, because there's these ruminations that happen, right? And there's looping. That's what often happens with PTSD and CPTSD. And I know it from my own system, and then also walking my sister through a big process of working through her post trauma, um, which was inspiring to me on my journey. But the only way to really get out of that is to get out of the default mode network of the brain. And this is what we really speak about and talk about, because our work is the bridge between the clinical and the ceremonial. And while you can go sit in an ayahuasca ceremony, yes, and that is going to be very powerful for your healing. And what I have found is the medicine that is the finest at breaking the looping thoughts is psilocybin mushrooms. And that's because it quiets the default mode network of the brain. It activates new neural pathways that then the serotonin can bring the hormones and the neurons to new parts of the brain, which basically causes you to think a bit like a child. It causes you to think in a creative way and to think, I've been thinking in this same looping pattern for 25 years and it's not working for me. It's actually causing my whole body and everything to degrade. Maybe it's time for me to think a different way. And I'm now able to get out of that and to quite literally experience a metamorphosis. But the only way to do that is to quiet that habitual part of the brain. That's the part that basically walks to the same door. It's like a cartoon, you keep walking into the same wall, not realizing that all you have to do is turn left, right? It's like Who Moved My Cheese, that book, right? You have to be willing to pivot and turn and shift and alter. But the easiest way, the swiftest way that I've discovered it to get out of the patterns of post-traumatic stress and complex post-traumatic stress is by quieting that default mode network and then activating these new parts of the brain that maybe you've never even used before. And so then there's these brand new brilliant ideas that come to you, and it's all because you just quite literally opened your mind. That's really what it is, right? It's like, what does it take to get back into a place of curiosity and creativity? But when someone is in PTSD and CPTSD, the only way that they'll get there is if they feel safe. And when you're in that environment, your body, your vagus nerve is activated and you are fully in fight or flight or freeze or fawn or whatever your fear response is. So your body's living in fear. And so you're going to continue in that looping mechanism until you get to a place where you feel safe. And I've found that psilocybin is the best medicine for that process.
Gotcha. I didn't know I was going to have a biology class, but thank you.
You're welcome.
And chemistry at the same time. No, but I just want people to get help. And that's why
Yep.
so more people get involved with this and they're all going, okay, this is what we see for the future. A full day with breakout sessions with different things that you need. So we found out there's like 5 to 6 things veterans need when they get out.
Mhm.
And those are the 6 things we need to focus on, which is, first of all, benefits, where, dealing with their PTSD, dealing with family, community connection with us again, with our people, and housing, and, and just general stuff that we lose when we get out, that we need to be reconnected with. A friend, one of the guys, George, just finished his master's. He's going to go to law school now, and he's older guy, but he's young, you know what I mean? And he's
Yeah.
like, his plan is to be in politics, but he did a study, and he came up with 5 different things after talking to so many different people. I'm like, that's what we need to focus on at our events, because that's kind of what I was thinking anyway. I know he went out and did a whole study. I used my assistant Chad GPT and said, what are these things? And they came up with 6. Guess what? They're pretty much the same things. And it only took me a minute. Deep research. It's how you do it, not what you do. So
Love that.
and so that's why I'm like, okay, this is the plan for the future for this, is to grow this and have breakout sessions on how do you deal with your PTSD? How do you deal with your, because this is one thing it's for veterans, first responder, and your family, because
Mhm.
what you're going through, your family's going through. And I want people to stop this 40, realizing that they have PTSD when they're 47, 50 something, and they destroyed every relationship they've ever had, and they finally, well, oh, now I got to deal with something. No, we need to deal with it sooner. And that's what I think is so important. And we don't talk about it enough. That's why I started helping the brave. And one of the things I've just recently did is I started a veterans benefit company, because I'm going through the process with this ranger guy. Amazing process. But, from being in the Silicon Valley and being at where I am in Modesto, we think things differently. We do things faster. And how do we do this? How do we do that? How can we get more people through there's 16 million of us veterans, and only, you know, 20% of us have any benefits. And out of that
Mhm.
20%, only about 2% have 100%, because they fight you all the way through to get that
Yeah.
to you.
Yep. Mhm.
And 100% disabled veteran doesn't mean you don't have arms and legs and can't do anything. It just means your numbers max up to that.
Yes. That's
And that's
right.
what, and so I see that what I went through, I don't want another veteran to go through. It took so long. I lost out on so much money that I could have had,
Mm.
and help that I could have been along the way. My kids could have went to school full time. I mean, that whole thing that you get when you
Yeah.
get all that benefits. And I'm in the mortgage industry, so I understand how important having benefits can change your life to where now you can own a home, that where
Yeah.
before you couldn't own a home.
Yep. Yep. I think that allowing, veterans to have the resources. To me, I want them to have whatever resources are available, and to catapult them into the world. Because what I noticed about the military community and being in the military was the vast majority of the people that I met were these unbelievably altruistic, good-hearted, like service-oriented humans who really genuinely wanted to like care for, and did like cared for a lot of people. And to some extent, I did feel a little bit bamboozled, going into it, and it being like, oh, you're going to be fighting for your country and for the safety of everybody, and then going to war and realizing, like, what am I fighting for? Like, what is this? But all the things that drew me there were my desire to help and to serve, and to be of like connection to so many people who were also on that journey of healing and growth. And I think that, like, that's why I'm really excited to see the veteran community be kind of like the spear, the tip of the spear for the psychedelics movement and for a lot of alternative cares. Because because I think that it is exactly the group of people who really are all about genuine, like, selfless service. It really is. And so I'm excited for more and more support to come, and it to be much more accessible. And I think that that's also what the psychedelic and plant medicine world brings. Because right now we're pumping, and I have a dear friend who went viral for the whole big bag of like pills that they were basically prescribed for a full year. It was like 100,000 pills, something absolutely ridiculous, right? And they went viral for this, and it was tragic, because it reminded you of how the VA system and some of these other health systems and the governmental system really just wants to kind of like here, just take some medication and hush, right? Like we don't actually want to heal this. But that's so expensive, not just for the veteran themselves, but also for the VA system and for all of our taxpayers. So for me, I see the psychedelics and the plant medicine movement as this movement towards something that is significantly, like on a cost perspective, cheaper, because you can have someone sit with psilocybin, have a ceremony or an experience with psilocybin, and they are good for a year, right? And then maybe they do another one, and maybe they do a few, but I am the perfect example, because over the course of, let's see, I got out in 2016. I started working with plant medicine in about 2018, 2019. It's taken me 6 to 7 years of sitting with medicine, maybe twice a year, over that period of time, to get to a place where I have zero substances in my life, no coping mechanisms. Like I no longer even consume plant medicine. And that's because over time, I have literally gotten to a place where I am happy, I am alive, I am healthy, and I am balanced. So imagine if we could, if one ceremony cost, right, it costs like $10 for the actual pill, for the actual psilocybin, and then it costs the time for the facilitator or the doctor who's on staff. But then you only have to do that once a year. Like
Mm.
that would be a huge difference.
Well, that's the difference with the VA. The VA was before it is now was about how many people they had and how much their budget was. In order to keep it like that, they had to pump pills into vets and all that kind of stuff. There's a documentary called, oh my God, I can't believe it. I want to say Surfed, but it's not. It's
Mhm.
Operation Surf is the company.
Yes, I love Operation
Okay.
Surf.
I had them come over and talk to my Rotary last year,
Oh,
um,
amazing.
and they were amazing. But I can't think of the name of what's the name of the
Yeah,
documentary?
they did do a
That's it.
documentary.
Yeah,
I remember
resurfaced.
that.
Resurfaced. That's what it was.
Resurfaced.
And that showed the. I mean, if you just type in Operation Surf, and
Mhm.
there's videos that come up, and one of the guys shows a bowl full of pills, and he was going out to surf, and he was first time he's like, I'm just gonna do this, and then
Yep.
I'm gonna go back and commit suicide. And then he went out and it changed his life. And
And
that's
it
all
changed
it is.
his life.
We got to change the behavior, change
Yes.
certain things.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so adamant about my helping the brave, what I'm trying to do. My goal with helping the brave is just connect with people, talk about their transition, what they're going through. And then now it's changed.
Yeah.
My helping the brave that I'm putting together is going to have on there everywhere, every benefit, everything you need to get, and every services you need to get that's out there that you can
Yeah.
have access to.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest problems with all the nonprofits in our that's supposedly there to help veterans, they don't communicate with each other. They do not, because they overlap just a little bit. So there's silos in each one of them. And I think that's horrible. They're not there just for the vets, or they're there to build their nonprofit. I'm here for just the vets. I don't care about anything else.
I love that. I love that. Well, we need that. We need more of that in the
Yes, we
world
do.
right
And
now.
I need more people to get involved. So I'm glad you're coming out this year.
Yeah.
Well, because
I love
I
this.
need somebody, because Ralph, who's on our team, is huge into, not as much as what you're talking about, but he's
Mhm.
there. And
Yep.
he would be the perfect person for this side to work with you on that side, to where we grow to where you could
Well,
go, you
let's
know,
talk about it, Ed.
all
Let's
right,
let's
well, let's
let's have
hang
a
up here because we've
conversation.
been here for 50 minutes and normally it's 30. So anything else you want to add before we go, Savannah?
um,
Suzanne,
well,
is
I
it
want to make
Susanna or
sure.
I almost said Savannah?
Susanna. Yeah, but
Susanna.
you know what's funny is Savannah is my alter ego. My mother almost named me Savannah, and
Oh,
people
really?
call me Savannah all the time. And I have a dear friend who's from the Marine Corps, and her name is Savannah. So, and we look like sisters. So we'll give her a shout out. And I, yeah, I offer that, especially for the veteran community, especially for those who came to serve and to really like honor the people that they love and their communities, and they want to work hard to like protect. A lot of times we lose ourselves along the way, and we lose connection with our own intuition because we're part of these very big organizations that, I don't like the word hijack, but it takes over some of your own knowing, your own intuition. And so I just encourage anyone who's out there, like you said, I don't care what it is, just like pick your medicine, right? Like pick your poison. Like pick the thing that feels truest to you and go in that path. I will offer and share, and we will create containers primarily for psilocybin and ceremony, but there are so many means of doing that pivot, right? That thing that breaks you out of the pattern. Just get into some kind of non-ordinary state of consciousness, which could be just travel, it could be surfing, it could be walking into the forest. Whatever it is for you, trust your intuition to bring you there, and trust that you are right, that your path of healing is exactly what you need it to be, and that you can trust your process on that. Yeah.
How do people find you?
They can go to metamorphosis.ventures and they can look at our website. They can also follow me personally on Instagram at Susannah Roses, and that's Susannah with an S and an H. And they can follow at Embodied Metamorphosis, but you'll find that on my profile as well. And we'd love to see you. We host virtual masterclasses with our incredible network of affiliate facilitators. Every month we do multiple. And if you are a veteran, email me or send a message to connect@metamorphosis.ventures, and I will absolutely welcome you for free. Like you can have one gifted on me and see what we're all about.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. Had a good time with you.
You too, Ed.
All right. Stay right there.